Well, it's 1995 and once again we herald the arrival of that world-famous event, the Great Dorset Steam Fair. This year we celebrate the 27th anniversary of the show that just goes on getting bigger and better. Those of you who recall the early days of Stour Pane and the mud are really in for a treat this year. A long, hot summer has provided us with a very dry but somewhat dusty event. Preparations begin many weeks before the show date, and during the preceding week we see the arrival of the varied exhibits. Let's watch the unloading of this Evelyn and Porter engine. This is turned up to parade, believe it or not, with the steamrollers. You might think this rather strange, but enthusiasts will note the flange on the smoke box that identifies this old engine as a convertible. She was built in 1905, named Pride of the Forest, and once worked on an estate in Sussex. It was used for haulage and driving a saw bench, and also road rolling. How's that for versatility? Well, this time we are looking at a genuine steamroller, and quite a rare one, because this belongs to Fords of Cheddar, and they are actually a contractor, and there aren't many old steamrollers actually owned by contractors now. Now, coming off this low loader trailer is an old portable, rather dilapidated looking piece of machinery, but nevertheless, you bet your life that in a few years' time that's going to be in an immaculate state of restoration up here at the Great Dorset. And this year a lot of attention has been paid to the portable engines. Robert Coles has once again excelled all expectations with this section. A great man as Robert brings on a specialist exhibition each year, one of the directors of the show and a valuable member of the team. There's the lone traction engine wending its way through the lovely Dorset countryside. Not all engines carried on low loaders. And in the welcome breeze, the cornricks just can't wait to get rid of their sheets to welcome the arrival of the thrash and tackle. And the heavy haulage by the commercial section. That'll be there to fill old lorry drivers with nostalgia and admiration. Yeah, looking over the site now, it looks pretty bare, but within a couple of days that's going to be the biggest concentration of buildings in Dorset, and the biggest concentration of people too, we hope. And of course the horse fraternity, they're catered for, and this 3 horsepower unit is pulling the seed drill, just like the old days. And of course, the setting up of the fair. The most difficult task of them all. The layout depended on one person, our organiser, Mike Oliver. A genius in this respect, knows where everything goes, right to the last inch. Where is he? He should be here somewhere helping these lads know just where to put their pitch. Otherwise, there could be problems. Ah, here he is. I wonder what he's got to say about it.
How's it all going then, mate?
Very well. We're getting it sorted out now. We've had our usual problems on the day before the show, but everything's levelling out. A couple or three more in the wrong place, but apart from that, we're right on top.
Are you looking forward to it now then?
Yeah, it's going well. It's still dry. That's the main thing. Dust still flying.
Now we're with Coronation Speedway. This is John Wharton's King George VI, previously owned by the famous Jack Wharton, now in possession of his son John. It's got the renamed sideboards, and this resulted from a visit to Pinckney Green earlier this year, where it worked alongside its old unit, Andrews Gallopers, another nostalgic link with the past. And of course, when you're in show business, appearance is very important. This year we shall see many portable engines, not all of them standing around to be admired, but as this one is labouring away, driving a small stone crusher. These old stone crushers, way back in Grandad's day, would often be seen on the side of the road. As we see, they were a portable unit, and this would be to crush the stone down as it was delivered by sometimes horse and cart or some old solid tired lorry, crushed down to the size that the steamroller could roll and make a roadway. Of course, this was a hard way to spend a day, and I've done a bit of quarrying myself, but I think back to my old grandfather's days when he used a shovel from morning to night and come home, and he didn't want much entertainment when he got home at night, and he used to get an extra halfpenny a day because he could shovel with his left hand as well as his right. But not many people can use a damn shovel, but these kids are doing very well for young'uns. Well done, that. Now here's Hoskins's open drum thrasher unit. Many an accident was caused in the thrashing field due to a little carelessness with this old type of system. That's another bit of nostalgia. I remember when we used to come out of school and hear the hum of the thrasher down at the local farm, and we kids used to rush down there just to watch it going on, and it was all a great novelty once a year to watch the thrashing outfit. A romantic sight, and many a photograph and painting has been done as a result of the old thrashing set. And what a lovely sight it used to be afterwards when they used to go ratting at the very bottom of the rick, and the farmer's dog was always waiting around those last few inches, and out would come the rats, and just quite a hectic few minutes there. That good entertainment for us school kids. This is, of course, the open drum thrasher unit, and a lot of accidents were caused way back because of the lack of safety with this open type of machinery. Wouldn't be allowed nowadays, but we can still demonstrate it here at the Great Dorset Steam Fair. Quite a technical bit of machinery, this, and of course the final product is the grain, which ends up on your table as a loaf. God forbid it should make a sliced one, but because you get some really good bread made out of this. Here on the show site, I might add, at times. And of course sometimes for animal feed. But all that mixture of belts and wheels, not a computer in sight. And plenty of dust. now here's something different. A couple of Diamond T's. Diamond T, the one in the front there, that's the type of vehicle that was supplied to the British Army during World War II. Our old Scammo tank transporters couldn't be produced fast enough, so we had to go to America, where they built, to our requirements, this huge Diamond T transporter. A little bit faster than the Scammo. Just behind that again, another of Pickford's outfits, the big 8-cylinder Gardner engine Foden. Two fine bits of machinery that you'll be seeing operating up here at the show, pulling this massive trailer built for the Central Electricity Generating Board back in the early 50s, with that huge, massive tank on behind it. The Diamond T, going back to that again, was originally built with a Hercules diesel engine in, but those old Herc engines have long since died. We had two of the Pickford's original Diamond T's up here this year, one with a Rolls-Royce diesel and the other one with a Cummins diesel. Only a 4-speed gearbox, but they also had a 3-speed box to give you 12 forwards and of course 3 reverses. Here's the second Diamond T coming up behind. A lot of these Diamond T's were used by Pickfords and Winds for heavy haulage right up until, I reckon, the 60s. Fine bit of machinery, wonderful brakes. There they are, working just as they worked for Pickfords many, many years ago. This is something that's really going to delight the commercial section fans this year.
Not just by the men that were responsible for actually physically moving them, but by the rest of the team that used to have to look after the loads while they were in transit, and the surrounding streets and the street furniture removal and replacement. Weren't the Diamond T's, which were originally military vehicles, when they were converted, would have found themselves with new power plants under those long bombings there, and I understand that one of these is Rolls-Royce powered these days and one is coming. The original fuel guzzlers that they were fitted with for service use wouldn't have done at all for civilian. A whole lot of room, thank you very much. I think that's one of the big...
Those big wheels have covered a fair few miles of British countryside. And look at these lads, the trailer boys, applying the brakes there. The lads that don't get a lot of shine when it comes to praises on the showground, but if I'm in the commentary box, I always like to give them a perk because they worked hard and they were an essential part of those big loads. Right, now we got the horse section. This is run by Sid Wallace. It's a show in itself, and horses go back further than the steam engine, don't they? And these heavy horses were used many years ago for ploughing, hauling big trailers, carts about, and even before that to carry the knights of old around to their battle. A great thing is the horse, and it's still with us. And believe me, you haven't seen anything until you've seen the horse section up at the Great Dorset Steam Fair. We've got some great horses and we've got some great characters there, not least of all Anne Williams.
Lovely fella. He'd like to have a dummy. Keeps when he's working with her, he gets hold of anything on her harness and sucks it. Oh, he really needs a great big dummy. Silly boy. Well, the thing is that you must the backs of the brasses should be as clean as the fronts. And the flints, you know, the horses have to learn to plough in flints because it makes a shattering feeling on their shoulders. It's something that it's a knack, you know, they just get to know. And the slower they go, you want them to go as slowly as they can walk so that it doesn't break the furrow when they're... And when the ground's hard, the tendency is the harder the pull, they try and you know, to get the heavier weight, they tend to try and go a bit faster. They have to learn to lean on their collars. And the horse that's been working with Lupin for 7 years, he's 19 now, and he's gone to help someone out pulling the barge at Tiverton. And of course, to shift the barge for the first time is a hell of a weight. So nobody told him that the weight would ease up, you know, it was difficult. So the barge went up the canal in half the time like a speedboat. And then it dawned on him that it's only just getting it moving. It's, I don't know how much they weigh 4 ton or what, just to get it shifted the first. Once you get it shifted in the water, you can just almost you know, dawdle, and it'll come itself. Keeping the raffia on top all the time. Now I'm certainly, these plats were made by a Romany gypsy who used to come ploughing with us. And it's very old-fashioned to have raffia. Most people have other things. Now we need the scissors to do that, or you could jug handle it like going like that and through that. You can make a hole with the finger, but it's interesting, everyone's got different styles. And I think it's the old gypsy used to show me this one, you see. But the reason the horses were docked was to stop their tails getting tangled in the harness and things. So what you do with a long tail, but for the wedding that would just look fine, and put another ribbon round there. Let's just get a duster and I'll show you what these are for. I don't have their own collar made for them until they're 6 years old, till they finish growing, so they have to make do with other collars because they're very expensive. The correct way to put a collar on is without the hames. These are the hames. You're supposed to put this bit on and then put the hames on, but I'm too lazy. And you should really tie the horse up as well, so it doesn't disappear when you put the collar on. So I also don't do that either. And you put this up and you put the collar on upside down to the narrowest part of the neck and turn it round, and then lift it up and make it comfy, because it's like wearing a pair of shoes. Most important that it fits comfortably on the bearing here, that down like that. So this is Lupin's own collar, and then so she can breathe in there. And that comes to this point that I have a very strong about. The most important word in the heavy horse language is stand still. Because if something goes wrong, you say stand still, boom, you can sort yourself out.
Hear that, Leo? She said stand still, so don't put your foot in it.
It's a very dusty place, Starpain, you know. Just dust it all off. Right, now this thing, I can never remember which goes on which horse, is the Hausen. And it's decorative today because people, you know, the remit is for people wanting to take photographs. But if it was raining, you'd let this strap down and have it sitting like that, and then the rain, it stops the rain running down between the collar and the horse. And you know, if you had to walk 11 miles, which is what you'd walk ploughing an acre a day, your feet would be rather sore if they were wet all the time. So you'd still have to plough your acre a day, but the water, it takes it off and stops it going on the shoulder. So you have it standing up for decoration. Like that. And it's just absolutely vital. I can't tell you this standing still. They're so big, you see. They just must do as they're told. Oh, and she's got to have a drop of suntan cream on her nose here. Last time we had a really hot summer, she got burnt there. And now she has to wear suntan cream on that little patch on her nose when the sun's bad. She hates having it on, you know. I don't think she likes the smell. Yeah. Good girl. It's got a nice smell actually. It's a citronella based one. Now just put, because you want them to concentrate, don't you, and be comfortable. They're doing their best for you. So just under there is their flies can get them horribly. And there. I mean, some people might say it's totally unnecessary, but you know, you want them to concentrate and be as comfortable as possible. You might as well do your best, really. Under there. Bit more. Right, and then this helps the guidance between the two of them, your steering. So it's quite different to the pole harness. And once more, you know, it's like that and then put it through there. Particularly with Leo, who picks everything up. You can see everything's chewed, and he's such a baby still that he's just fiddles around and sucks and anything in sight. See, that's the thing. I'm just saying G back, and I haven't. They know to turn right. Whoa, whoa. Stand still.
Well done, Anne, and now they're off to do a good day's work. Just like they used to years ago, pulling the plough, a skilled job, and I believe Anne is the only lady plough operator in the country now, or certainly if she is the only one, she's the most skillful. Right, it's back to work, and what a joy it is to watch these horses ploughing as they did back in those old days. And people come from all over the country, yes, all over the world, to this location to see ploughing, how it was done. And believe me, the horses love doing it too. And many's the time I've seen a young horse learning beside the old horse up here at the Great Dorset. And what a fine pair she's got there working, and it really is a pleasure to watch them enjoying themselves pulling that plough up and down there. Yeah, not only must we comment on the strength of the horses, but what about Anne? She's got to be pretty fit to handle that plough. It's no lightweight job, and through her career with these ploughing horses, she's won many a competition. We're very proud to have Anne up here at the Great Dorset. Now over to a later form of ploughing, not with one furrow, but sometimes 4, sometimes 6, using 2 steam engines. What a contrast they are to the immaculately prepared showman's engines. Here up at Great Dorset we find these old workhorses, well covered with dust and smeared with oil, looking for all the world like a time warp back to the 20s and 30s. There's the big winch that plays out one end to let the plough go, and on the other engine it's pulling away to draw it towards us, each taking in turn to drag the plough from one side of the field to the other. Here she comes now, not only through deep soil, but up a fair gradient. Some of these engines go 12 and 15 nominal horsepower compared with the average of about 6 to 8 down there on the show field. The signalling is done by whistle. Usually it's a job for one man on the plough machine, but of course you'll always get eager people in for a ride and acting as ballast. Just look beyond the plough now at the size of this showground. 700 odd acres of exhibits and camping area. It's a vast show, but there's never a 100-yard walk without seeing something of great interest. Waiting for the whistle again to set off on its journey back down the slope and keep going all day. You can walk around this show and there's always something working. That's the beauty of it. Just think how sad it is that so many of these engines were scrapped when they were no longer needed when the big diesel tractors came in. Some of them lay almost to the scrap stage, derelict among nettles and woods for many years, and these enthusiasts found them, dragged them out and rebuilt them. And of course there are still a few in the country today that kept working all the way through, and there are a couple of engines over on the east coast are still used regularly, driven by steam, doing dredging work. There's nothing cheaper to run than the old steam engine. What a shame that so many of them fell to the torch. Then again, they tell us that's progress. Most of these built by Fowler, John Fowler of Leeds. Well, old-fashioned or not, it's a damn sight quicker than a spade, isn't it? Coming away from steam now, we're on to TVO. This is a Nuffield pulling a ransom plough. Nuffield, the great Nuffield organisation of post-war years. With a purpose-built hydraulic system on the back of it, first devised by Harry Ferguson on his small tractors in the 30s. There is one of the famous Fergusons. He revolutionised the agricultural scene when he fitted the hydraulic system on the back. You could put anything from a plough to a small carrying tub on the back. Wonderful selection of tractors here at the Great Dorset. Hundreds of them on static display and many, many more out there working. You've got to go a long way to find enthusiasm like these tractor owners. The show opens at 10 o'clock, but these are out there ploughing at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they're queuing up, waiting their turn to get out there and put their old tractors to work. They look after them just like a baby. It's fantastic enthusiasm. There's the famous Marshall. That was the most successful replacement, I suppose, for the steam traction engine. It had a big flywheel on the side and a horizontal single-cylinder two-stroke diesel engine in it. Now this is a bit of tractor use with a difference. These are pulling a sled. It's not to do the countryside any good. It's there for just power purposes. It's a big competition. These are the tractors that are on steroids. They try and see what they can do in their own beefy way, pulling this sled that increases in pressure over the distance. Tractor pulling is a great sport in the country now. It comes into different categories, the small ones right up to the big ones. And if you want to see a big, hairy, masculine sport, then you've got to watch the tractor pulling. But now we're going to have a go with the old Marshall, which is not purpose built for tractor pulling. And she looks like she's going to do a wheelie up there. As I said, she's not counterbalanced to do this, but she's doing her best. Not getting much effect from the steering on that pull. There's a little bulldozer preparing the run for him again. Now let's have another go. Wonderful old engines, these old Marshalls, absolutely indestructible. Yes, it's got it moving. It's a lot of difference between that Marshall and the big high quality tractor pullers. Some of them with 2 aircraft engines in. Some are now even jet turbine propelled. And I have seen one with 6 Rover V8 engines in. And the amount of fuel they consume just up that short space of time must play hell with holes in the atmosphere. It's a great sport to watch too. But I think this is just a challenge to the Marshall to say that anything you can do, the old Marshall's prepared to have a go at. Not necessarily in a straight line. And that's enough for today, he said. Real old workhorse this, unrestored. Of course this one's got the big lugs on the back that digs in when he's out there pulling timber in the woods with that massive winch on the back. Now let's have a look and see how it's done with 2 purpose-built tractors. These are the smaller type, but of course there are 2 on there now, and the sort of fuel they're burning, God knows what it is, but here they go. Hands on your ears. The further they pull, the more pressure goes down on that sled at the back, making it more difficult. So not only is it a timed event, but it's to see how far they can pull that terrible sled on the back there. And I reckon that's just about it. And now for something a little more gentle, over to Roger Burville's organ and Pauline Reeder's dancing girls.
Everybody clap. Yeah, let's give them a big hand. Thank you to the poor.
Now we're over to a thrashing set again, in a more miniature size, but nevertheless it's a proper job. It's not a model. This is for the small holder to do his thrashing. Nevertheless, just as efficient as the big ones. Didn't need the big staff that you needed with the other thrashing outfit. And look at the crowd, they're enjoying every bit of it. Some of the younger people especially are so fascinated to see how things were done back in their grandparents' days. Driven by a small stationary engine. No remote controls to operate this stuff, just yards of belt. And of course sometimes the grain has to go back in again, just to bring it up to scratch, to make sure the product on your table is the best. It's a lovely feeling, dipping your hand down amongst that grain and feeling it sift through your fingers. How's that for quality? And of course, once it's in this machine, it goes in to be ground down to your natural flour. There it is, coming into the bag. And of course, most farms would have had this on board there so that they made their own flour, made their own bread, and sold a few loaves to their neighbours. Probably gave the free bread to the farm labourer. Just plain simple machinery. Very seldom went wrong. And the beauty of all this machinery is that you can just watch everything happening. There it is, all ready to be weighed up. Nothing metric about those measurements either. Got a modern plastic bag though. Just look at the colour of that. That's real flour, that is. Best quality, and it's British. There's a small Lister made at Dursley in Gloucester, one of the most popular and common of all the stationary engines. Now let's go over to the playpen, the famous playpen. That's the heavy haulage area of the Great Dorset Steam Fair. This is where you'll see big engines and small engines pulling pretty heavy loads. That old transformer over there has been hauled up and down this field for a few years now, with famous big engines built by Burrell, McLaren, Fowler, and all the famous makes. Here's a famous Wallace and Stevens engine coming now. That's Pandora. Pandora there, built at Basingstoke. It's got the tractor treads put around its wheels there to give a bit extra grip. And I remember a few years ago when we did have some rain here at the Great Dorset, quite a lot. And a lot of stuff was getting stuck, and old Pandora was out there heaving away and getting a bit better grip than the smooth wheels on the other engines, and did sterling work. It's a great area, a great crowd drawer, and this year they brought a Sherman tank all the way from Bovington Tank Museum on the road, escorted by the police with backup engines and living vans and fuel. They travelled on the Sunday prior to the show from Bovington to Pimpern, the little village just down the road from here. But on Wednesday morning when the show started, they moved that load into the showground, and you just can't imagine the crowds that just watched that historic event. And here they come now, up the front there, the Fowler crane, and look at that dust flying. You can hardly see the old Sherman tank there. The Sherman tank, of course, was a big 38-ton tank built by the Americans in their thousands during the war and supplied to our forces as well. That's Len Crane's engine on the front. Of course, Len's one of the old favourites of the show here. He always takes part in the heavy haulage. And that's followed up with another Fowler crane engine, but of course without its jib this year. That's a Norman box engine, Marston haulage, an engine with a hell of a lot of history. And there, pushing up behind the trailer, is Boadicea. That's a big McLaren engine that before Heels owned it, was owned by Steve Neville, the great Steve Neville, who we had up here for many, many years. He apparently bought it, having never driven a steam engine. And when they went to collect it, they had to carry the water about a quarter of a mile to get to it, steamed it up, and then went back another quarter of a mile away in case the thing blew up. But nevertheless, she's one of the biggest and most powerful engines up here on the field today, and very ably driven by our popular Martin Fagg. Of course, it was built originally back for the First World War, built in just after the First World War, and like the Sherman tank, never did see action. There you see the young lads on the trailers, those unsung heroes again, who are so essential to that big load. Here they come, barking away up the slope, a good mixture of smoke and dust. But the alternative is mud, so who's complaining? You can see the power behind these engines coming up through here now, and you can see the rather fast white jet of steam coming up there. That's coming out of the safety valve. That shows they got a full head of steam on there, and they need it to work up across that slope during the day. But a few years back, when it was muddy, those engines wouldn't get the grip to go up there, but that's when Lenny Crane and Dave Allen and Jim Sarney got their heads together, and they moved the loads despite the rain, despite the mud, by using their winches. And I think that was a very spectacular year. This is another gang, like we were mentioning about the tractor drivers, who are out there working from daylight to dusk, just to move these big loads. They move loads that the old contractors years ago would have turned their nose up at because of the weather, but they know they've got to do something within the 5 days at the Great Dorset, and they do it just for the sheer love of it. It's a photographer's dream, isn't it? And I suppose it's safe to say this is the biggest crowd puller of the show, the heavy haulage pen. Now this is the view you get if you sat on top of the tank. The only thing you miss here is the smell of it. There's nothing like the smell of a steam engine. And when you got 3 up there working, well then, it's a fairy tale, believe me. Up on the top of the field there, you can see the fire engine on standby. We had great help from the voluntary fire lads. They're firemen who got their own fire engines, enthusiasts who come along just to portray their engine at the show.
I see we've got the lads with the load of stone there. I hope they're not going to be in the way for our parking up of the road train. Anyway, here they come. They're taking the brakes off now. They're getting to the bottom of the dip. The front engine.
After a day's work here, those engines go back to the top, and they come out again next day, looking spick and span.
Just something else, this show. Nothing like it in the world. Never has been, never will be. People try to copy it, but it only happens there, and things happen here that are not actually preempted. It just happens. Things just happen here, and that wouldn't happen. I mean, some of the things that happen at this rally, you know, if that was to happen at an ordinary traction engine rally, oh, it's a disaster, you know, and dear, oh, we'll have to shut the show, and oh dear, oh dear. But people don't even look at it here, you know. We had a show, a portable fell off as I've just said, fell off a loader. It tipped over on its side, and I was on my way to go and get some fish and chips, and I thought, hello, what are all those people looking at over there? Oh Christ, somebody's tipped a portable engine over. Never mind, and carried on to get my fish and chips. And people say, well, how the hell can you take that at you? But it's just stomach pain, and these type of things happen here, and nobody really makes a fuss about it. You know, it's just how it just happens, and that's it. You know, it's stomach pain.
Yes, unfortunately, we had a slight mishap on Tuesday evening, and it's unfortunate, but we had one of these things you can't help it. I must say that the organisation here combined with this rally is fantastic, and at the time I was gobsmacked, but with the lads, help from the lads here, they got around and they persuaded me to stay, and I left it to them, and then within 24 hours the engine was back in steam, and as you can see at the moment she's ticking over quite well. The camaraderie of an event like this is untold. You could go anywhere in the road and you won't find it. I've been coming to every Blandford rally since 1968, only as a paying member, but this year it's the first time as an invited exhibitor, so it's been a one-off for me. Bit of a hiccup to start with, but all being well, if you can come back next year, we can give you the full run out of the engine.
Let's have a wander now amongst the portable engines. These portables were the original steam engines for work on farm and contract work, and in many cases they were moved around, pulled by a horse. This particular one came from France and built almost entirely of brass, except for the moving parts. What a lovely thing to have in your sitting room. That would be just as an exhibit. But it was a wonderful display. Some of them laid out different to others, because in those days there was no set plan like your modern car is all built by computer, all looking the same. Everybody was scratching their head wondering how to make a steam engine useful for work. And this is really going back to the history of the steam traction engine, famous old portables. Isn't it wonderful that they can still be seen here working? If you lived back in the turn of the century, you could have woken up on a lovely summer's day and listened to the birds singing. Wouldn't have heard any airplanes go over, but you might have heard the clatter of the Shire horse hooves as it came by, and the ring of the steel wheels of these old portables. Perhaps your local farmer decided to pop down to the next farm and use his engine down there to saw up a bit of wood for him or to drive his thrashing set. Some of these were owned by contractors travelling many miles just to go around doing the work on the farm. And this is when people were thinking, well, perhaps steam will replace the horse one day. But it's a long way back. You aren't allowed to pull things like that around the road anymore now. In fact, you wouldn't want to, the time it took, but time wasn't a premium back in those days. And here's a skilled man sharpening his saw on the saw bench. An old skill that's been passed down probably through his same family. Of course, they even got the skills of putting the belt on, and you've got to get your timing right here. Just watch that. Looks so simple that you could soon crack a wrist if you didn't know what you were doing there. And of course, another skill is keeping the engine going at the right temperature, knowing just how to lay a fire. Unskilled hands would soon put the fire out. Every year, every steam engine, be it a portable, traction engine, or even a miniature that's used on a show field, has to be inspected by the boiler inspector and get a certificate. Otherwise it cannot be used and cannot be put onto a show field. And every 7 years they have a complete strip down, and the old boiler inspector gets right the way in round there and tests every rivet. So life is safer in the proximity of these steam engines now than ever it was back in the olden days. Yeah, in the old days they didn't have all these regulations, and some of the contractors and owners of these old machines was to cheat a bit when they want a bit more power and actually strap down their safety valves and build up a dangerous pressure. And there must be a few people in the churchyard now who made that premature visit because of these stupid activities and lack of safety regulations of days gone. Another sound from way back, the pleasant ring of that saw. And the skilled man on the handle, winding it through. Just watching the top tooth sing through there, just like a shark's fin coming up through. He's there. Not satisfied with the dust that we had on the field, these chaps get full of sawdust just to add to it. And each day, as activities come to an end, the engine men, the tractor men and the commercial boys, they like to get down in around the fair and have a jar or two and listen to the entertainment. One of the famous places for entertainment is round Saunders' organ, he puts on a wonderful show every year with not only dancing girls but the old-time music hall songs and memories of way back. It really is a fairyland of sound and sight and smells, and something you must never miss. A lot of visitors to the show who stay in their caravans at night, park up on the high ground, or even passers-by will stop on the roadside just to look at this sight. If you haven't seen it, you haven't lived. And as we bring the show to a close, we will let Penny Rigdon and her dancing girls and her singers say goodnight.
I give the world to be amongst the folks in DIX. I even know my mammies waiting for me, praying for me down by the Swanee. The folks up north will see me no more when I get to that Swanee shore. Swanee, Swanee, I get back to Swanee. Mammy, Mammy, I love the old folks at home.
So if you've got any loose change as the girls come round with the cancer tins, feel free, and loose coppers, or we have a tin down the front here. It all goes to a good cause, and thank you for your support last year, which helped us to raise £3,000 for that charity.
Yeah, that is true. I've got a wonderful team of at least 20 top men and another team of 25 or 30 that come in casuals. And they are, and women of course as well. We mustn't forget the women on the paper side. And they are a wonderful bunch of people. Of course I get all the credit for it, but they are the ones behind that does all the work. And when things go exceedingly well, I take the credit, and when things go not well or make a bloody cock of it, I say, well, what can you do when you got bloody idiots like I have up here helping?
I heard him coming down the track the other day, and